I don't know what it says about the gaming community as a whole that some of the most popular or talked about games are extremely simple, both visually and mechanically. Hotline Miami, Undertale, Fez, and Cuphead are examples of games that are very simple in concept and execution, yet they are or were some of the most talked about games online. As much as the community will make a fuss about superficial things like the graphics or the music or even microtransactions, at the end of the day, we know what we want for our games. Enough prolonging, I've let my rage die down from playing Getting Over It, and I'm finally ready to talk about this
game.
Now, I wouldn't consider myself an addict, though some professionals might disagree with me, but when I bought this game, I legitimately couldn't tear myself away from it. Sometimes a game doesn't need to have a great story to pull you in, it doesn't need to have a complex or relatable main character, and it definitely doesn't need to be an immersive experience. Which is the case in Getting Over It with Bennet, Foddy, a game which I played and beat in 20 hours. It's able to keep me, the player, engaged by having fun mechanics and a mysterious ending, with beautiful visuals and music, and a non-diegetic narrator spewing inspirational non-sequiturs. So I grouped the gameplay and the ending arguments for two reasons. First, an essay with 4 arguments just felt wrong to write, and I could feel the ghost of my English teacher scolding me for abandoning format. And second, it's because I'm a lazy asshole, and from what I know, 1 paragraph is less than 2. So what was so engaging about the gameplay? And also, what was the gameplay? Because that might be an important thing to know first. In Getting Over It with Bennet, Foddy, you play as, presumably, Bennet Foddy, a muscular Australian who looks suspiciously Irish.
So racist now.
You wield the mighty Mjolnir, and you use it to awkwardly climb obstacles of varying degrees of inclination. That's it. It's just you, a hammer, and the unrelenting fear of riding the snake by accident. Now I know that complexity and variation in gameplay can make for some very memorable games, but when something is this simple and this enjoyable, it can't be ignored. The thing that seems to have everybody up in arms about this game is the difficulty. You will fail at this game, no exceptions. Even the speedrunners fail in their record runs. The thing that I feel makes the gameplay bearable is that there's no one way to get past an obstacle, despite there being only one movement option. For example, this paddle is one of the first obstacles in the game. You could launch yourself up from a standstill, you could catch it with your momentum, you could hook it from underneath, or you could do some fourth thing, I don't know. I see a lot of people saying that this game is harder than Cuphead or it's most comparable to Dark Souls because of its adaptive player aspect and its difficulty.
Which is an argument I fucking by the way.
But me, being the god king of gaming that I am, I actually found it pretty easy once the method had been extracted from the madness. I alluded to the ending earlier, and I also just mentioned speedrunners. The reason is that the two are actually connected in a way. You actually have to click a checkbox promising that you won't record the ending and post it online. The reward is access to a chat room with other players who have also beaten the game. It's kind of disappointing, honestly. I preferred it when the ending was a mystery that could only be solved by beating this nearly impossible game. That idea is mostly what drove me up those mountains in the first place. And buildings. And water slides. This game is f***ing gorgeous. So much effort was put into building this world. It's a shame that the camera is locked in a 2D side-scrolling character following camera because the world is very clearly modeled in 3 dimensions, and I would love to look at all 3Ds
If you know what I mean.
Nothing is stylized, and random objects are surprisingly well modeled, like this hot tub or this castle. The world is built with these realistic models, but the world itself is anything but realistic. It starts off pretty reasonably. You're just a dude climbing a mountain. Whatever, been there, done that. Then there's like an apartment on top of a mountain. Okay, it's the kind of weird thing I can see people doing in the future. Then it's just a left turn into Wonderland when you climb a vertical shaft of furniture, scale a bat-infested castle, courage floating snowballs, and even end up launching yourself into space to be engulfed by the sun or whatever. It's just so confusing and unexplained what objects will show up next. But that personally made me want to play it more to see what kind of crazy messed up things will show up. Now I just want to quickly bring this up because I didn't know where else to put this or how to segue into it, but the music, while being extremely minor and virtually unnoticeable, does fit in with the concept. It's this sort of jazzy, Muzak-esque track that helps emphasize the more calm and philosophical nature of the game, as well as accompany the narrator while he's talking. When the player falls down, the narrator will often say some inspirational quote or some form of insight, but other times the player will only be greeted with a song. One of the most endearing yet least important things about getting over it is the narrator, Bennet Foddy. While it's not an element that contributed to my addiction of this game, it is definitely something that kept me sane in my 20+ hours of playing. His voice is very calm, he says pretty relevant and meta things during the game, and he speaks with a British accent, which is always 3 thumbs up from me. When you make progress in the game, elements of the narrator's character will be revealed in monologues, and he talks about various tropes in pop culture, like watching someone play a game instead of playing it ourselves, or paying just to play the same garbage as everyone else. It paints a picture of a cynical person who put his heart out there only to be broken or outshined by someone else. If you make the opposite of progress, aka you fall down like a big diapered baby loser, he'll bring up some philosophical points about how failure is the mother of invention or whatever. It inspires the players so much that they'll beat the game, solve world hunger, and propel society to become a Type 3 civilization. Again, it's definitely not a factor to consider when talking about addiction, but it's definitely improved the game for me. Final thoughts are always my weakest link, so I'll do a sentence summary for each argument and sign off. The gameplay, while being frustrating at times, is extremely enjoyable and makes working towards the ending a fun experience. The environment is so beautifully crafted that each new area somehow finds a way to be more creative than the last. The narrator, while functioning more as a little Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder than any actual impactful storytelling device, is a calm-voiced, charismatic man with some inspiring words to say.